everyone, today I'm going to be making one of my favorite dishes, paella, which is the traditional Spanish rice dish. One of the reasons why I like making it is I think it's great for a big family dinner because you can sort of get everyone together and just eat out of the paella pan. So I'm going to talk about some of the basic things that you'll need to make paella. Of course, I think you always need to start off with a good pan. So I have this paella pan. It's actually a nice size for me. It's good to make about 2 servings, and I got this at one of the Spanish stores that I really like to shop at. It's called the Spanish Table over in Berkeley. So if you don't have a paella pan, you can look for maybe a skillet about the same size like this, and then that'll probably do. But I really like this pan because it really sort of generates the heat in an even sort of way and then gets the pan pretty hot pretty fast, which is great for cooking the paella. And then of course you need the paella rice, which is this particular brand that I have is from Valencia, which is actually the origins of paella. And it's sort of like a boreal rice. It's a short grain rice, but this particular type that's used for paella, which is bomba, is actually one of the more popular ones, and I think it works perfectly all the time when you use it. Other things that is helpful for making paella is the spices. I use this smoked paprika, which actually is a sweet paprika, and it's called pimenton. I'm actually not sure if that's the correct way to pronounce it, but it's spelled P-I-M-E. Another ingredient that makes a traditional paella, I think, is always the Spanish chorizo. So that's what I have here, and I'm just going to chop it up into really small pieces, cook with some chicken thighs and then some other ingredients. The great thing about paella is that you can just put in whatever you want to sort of create this nice melding of flavors. So why don't we get started? So actually I've already started cooking my chicken thighs. I have 2 chicken thighs in my paella pan. I put a little bit of virgin olive oil. The chicken was seasoned with just some salt. And then I'm basically browning the chicken. Then I'm going to add the 1 chorizo that I cut up into little dices. I'm going to cook it with the chicken, and this will sort of help meld all the flavors together. So we got our chorizo and we got our chicken, and basically we're just going to let it cook a little bit. We're not going to let it cook all the way. We're just basically going to give some of the flavors to come out and kind of brown it a little bit, and then we're going to take it out of the pan when it's about done. Okay, so you see how the chicken has some nice color on it, and we've got the chorizo to cook a bit. I really just cooked it for maybe 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes, not too long. And then now I'm just going to remove it from the pan. So I'm going to take all the chicken first. And then the chorizo. Actually, this probably easier to just pour it out. Keep some of the oil in the pan because that's a lot of nice flavoring for us to start on our sofrito. Sofrito is sort of like the vegetable base that's cooked to a mush. I'm going to make my sofrito today with one green bell pepper that I've diced up. And I have 1 tomato that I took off the skin and removed the seeds and chopped up as well. So that goes in as well. And that's pretty much our sofrito base. In paella, I noticed a lot of recipes don't actually use onion, which is actually a good base for other cooking dishes like risotto. So for some reason in traditional paella dishes, they don't use the onion. So basically sofrito is usually just tomato and bell pepper, sometimes red bell pepper or even carrots. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. So I'm going to let this cook for about 15 minutes so that it can turn into a nice mush and almost like a paste, and that's actually going to be our sofrito, which will be the basis for our paella. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and of course the tomato is pretty mushy. It's very easy to get that mush down. The bell pepper, not so mushy, but I know it's softened because I can really get the aroma of the bell pepper. So I think it's pretty much where I want it to be. It'll cook even further when we start adding all the other ingredients. So now that you have your sofrito all set, I'm going to just spread it out, and then now I'm going to add the broth. So I usually put about 1.5 cups of broth, or as you can see, I'm just using one of those Swanson chicken broth cans. You know, which is fine. If you have homemade chicken stock, then good for you. Use that, you know, for your cooking. I like to use this because it's very convenient. I'm going to turn up the heat. So we added our broth. Then we can add our rice. So I have about 1 cup of the paella rice, which is the bomba variety that I have, which is very common for paella. Get that all evenly into the pan. So I'm going to just make sure I stir it all in. This is the time and only time when you can really stir your paella, because once you have everything evenly spaced out, then you're not supposed to touch it anymore, because what you want to do is let it cook and also let the bottom part create the saccharat, which is sort of the nice crunchy bits, and that won't happen if you're constantly stirring like risotto. So for paella, you don't stir, which is actually kind of nice. It's a pretty easy cooking. So I just added in the rice, and now I'm going to season the broth even more with my spices. So like I said, the sweet paprika is a powder, and this is actually a really nice flavoring. I have the smoked sweet paprika, so it'll be even nicer in terms of that nice sort of flavoring. I put about 1 tablespoon. Then we have the saffron threads. Again, this is a nice flavoring, but it also gives it a nice, even nicer red color, sort of golden color to your paella rice. I'm just going to put like 2 pinches, because, you know, like I said, these are very expensive. Okay, so we've got our spices, our broth, and the rice is all laid out. Now we can put the meat back in. So we have our chorizo and our chicken that we cooked earlier, basically just to brown it. And you know, you can just put it anywhere. You know, you can make a nice little pattern, or I just like to make it sort of even so that everyone grabbing from different parts of the paella pan will make sure that they have some of everything. Since there's so much chorizo, I'm not too worried about people getting chorizo. I really like the chorizo. It really gives it that distinctive Spanish flavor. Chorizo actually is used in a lot of cooking for Spanish dishes. Now, the thing I didn't say earlier about chorizo is you have to make sure you buy the Spanish chorizo. You can use the other chorizo that they have in the stores. That's from Mexico, and that's usually it's a little fresher, which means when you cook it, it's going to have a lot more oil coming out. I like the Spanish chorizo not just because it has a distinctive Spanish flavor, but it's also a little bit more preserved, so it doesn't cook out as much oil when you're using it. Okay, and then I'm going to put the heat at medium-high and let this cook. The rice should take about 15 minutes to cook. Again, I don't touch it. In about 5 minutes, after cooking this for 5 minutes, I'm going to add the seafood so that it'll cook for another 10 minutes for a total of about 15 minutes.